Cotton Mather was born in 1663 in New England and was descended from a long line of deeply religious ancestors. He devoted his life to Puritan beliefs and to the community in which he lived, the town of Salem. Even though he was blamed for the infamous Salem witch trials, he never actually physically participated in the trials. One literary critic in particular, Barrett Wendell, believes that Mather probably was deeply involved with the trials. Wendell states that Cotton Mather had had what he might well have believed a special message from heaven that his chief mission for the moment was to fight the witches. There were many other factors contributing to the prosecution of innocent people, which had a lot to do with the way that the town of Salem was set up politically and religiously. The Puritans were one half of a whole, and they felt that a close-knit community was needed in order to stay religiously pure and stable, while the other half were put into wanted individuality because it would be more economically prosperous that way. The Puritans who began the Salem witch trials, seeing as how their community was so close and strict, any sign of individuality would probably be seen as blasphemous, dangerous, and wrong. Although he did write accounts of these trials, Mather wrote The Wonders of the Invisible World, a religious piece of literature speaking of the presence of both God and the devil. In this piece of literature, he included his accounts of some of the Salem witch trials. The Wonders of the Invisible World, the trial of Martha Carrier in particular, shows how without knowledge of how physical things work, people tend to turn to religion to explain their problems. Many of the things in Martha Carrier's case could be explained by natural occurrences. He further testified that when Carrier and he sometimes were at variance, she would clap her hands at him and say he should get nothing by it, whereupon he several times lost his cattle by a strange death, whereof no natural causes could be given. This was one person's account of Carrier's witchcraft against the town people, which could be further explained. For example, it could have been diseases that killed the cows, but these people would have had no knowledge of these diseases given their lack of scientific knowledge, and so therefore they looked toward negative religious practices to explain the negative things around them. Also, on top of physical scientific occurrences, it could also have been mental problems that the accused were suffering from, such as in one particular testimony from Phoebe Chandler. Phoebe Chandler testified that about a fortnight before the apprehension of Martha Carrier on a Lord's Day, while the psalm was singing in the church, this Carrier then took her by the shoulder and, shaking her, asked her where she lived. She made no answer, although as Carrier, who lived next door to her father's house, could not in reason but know who she was. So obviously Carrier was violently confused about an obvious thing, if this count was truthful. In conclusion, the Salem witch trials could have been avoided if the people of Salem had had better education regarding scientific occurrences, instead of rationalizing strange events with religion. Also, if the Salem community had not been so politically divided among two sectors, the new way of thinking versus the old, the trials might also not have occurred.